Hi, everybody. This is Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am here for another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. Today, I have a very special guest, and I'm going to say his name correctly, Lamarcus Carradine, even though his friends, who I consider myself now, call him Marcus. And I'm just self-appointed friend. That's it. So I'm going to read a little short bio, and then I'm going to let him fill in the blanks. Marcus attended Belhaven University, where he was a football player and track athlete while maintaining a full course load. He was also vice president of the chess club. Lamarcus's major was sports medicine and exercise science, which he is using to become a chiropractor. As a football captain and player, Lamarcus has been invited to multiple All-Star games as well as the National Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. He played in the fan-controlled football league and is currently in the XFL draft pool. Lamarcus is a free agent wide receiver and the first professional athlete to be in chiropractic school at the same time as being an athlete. So welcome, Lamarcus. How are you today? Or Marcus. I'm just going to say Marcus from now on.
Yes, man, that's fine with me. I'm doing really, really good today. Enjoying the day, just blessed to be on here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And I just have to tell everybody, I connected with Marcus on LinkedIn, as I do with most of my connections. And we had a great initial conversation. I think at one point I asked to join his family when he was talking about his parents and how, his brothers and sisters are as the same as him, like motivated and doing things in the world. So that's what just attracted me to his profile, is all these things this young man is doing. And I just want to start out with, is there anything you can't do?
It's a lot that I can't do. I'm just trying to go through life and enjoy it as much as I can. So if it's something that I have not done or like thought about doing, I'm gonna try it at least once. So
I believe that. And your record shows that you will excel at it. Not only try it, but excel at it.
thank you, thank you, thank you. I just go when I go towards things, I go 100%. So I'm gonna try.
Yeah, absolutely. So fill in the blanks for your bio. Did I miss anything? What do you want to include? And you want people to know that was not included in your bio?
Um, one thing I would like to kind of include a little bit is like now like so since the like so while I'm in chiropractic school, while I'm doing football, so since the XFL draft came to pass and stuff like that, I was in the draft pool, and now I actually have a private workout with three NFL teams and a couple USFL and XFL teams on February the 18th. So we'll see how that goes. And I also have my part one boards that I have to take on April 15th as well. So I'm kind of shooting for the stars for that. Gotta do well in it to get my license, of course, in chiropractic. Outside of just graduating. So, that's one of the things I'm shooting for.
Well, congratulations on the private, what do you call it? Private practice?
Yeah, basically.
Private workout. Yeah. Congratulations on that. I don't know if that had happened when we had first talked. I think that's happened since then.
It literally happened like the next day. The next.
Wow. So I have, my next question to you, and I think I asked you this when we first talked too, is what made you choose chiropractic over another area of medicine? Because your major is exercise science and all that. So what made you choose chiropractic over everything else?
So first off, I'm gonna just like let you know, like I was originally like, okay, I'm gonna go to medical school or I'm gonna go to PT school. And so when I was first, it wasn't even when I graduated yet. My sophomore year, I actually started kind of like thinking like I don't know what I necessarily really want to do for real. Like I came down here, I basically chose I didn't necessarily choose my path because it was, what I wanted to do coming out of high school. I chose it literally because it was the hardest thing at the school. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it because everybody else says that like I can't do it, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna do it. That's exactly how it started, and it just so happened like it was something that I kind of like I started to fall in love with because I didn't realize that much about the human body, and I really didn't realize that it can go that deep, if that makes sense. And so I started trying to, relate things to my practices, how I worked out, how I would use certain muscles, how we use like how would certain bones move in certain areas and stuff like that. And I was like, I can kind of translate this to, real world applications. Like I can, if somebody goes to the grocery store and they're carrying 3 bags, like what muscle is necessarily being used and why is their shoulder hurt because of this? Why like I started trying to figure out all this type of stuff and I kind of started to get intrigued. And so after my sophomore year, I actually ended up getting injured. And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I was like, I'm gonna come back, it's football, it happens, I'm gonna come back. So 3 weeks go by and I'm still not better. And I'm like, I don't know what I need to do. At this point in time, I'm not even thinking about the human body for real. I'm more so just so concerned about the fact that I may not be playing. And so 3 weeks go by and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. And then the athletic trainer comes up to me and she was like, Marcus, like we're gonna have to send you somewhere else. Like, and she was like, you ever heard of a chiropractor? And I was like, what is a chiropractor? I was like, what is that? And she was just like, well, she described it in a different way of how I know it now. And I was like, I guess. I was like, if it's gonna make me feel better and if it's gonna help me get on the field as fast as I can, I'm let's go. Let's do it. The next day, she gives me like a letter. And she tells me to go, like not even a letter, just a note in a way. It tells me I need to go see this Cairo. And she was like, okay, Friday you have an appointment. I already booked it. You're gonna go to this appointment. So I'm like, all right. So I get a little interested. I'm trying to figure out what a chiropractor actually does. And so I started looking up stuff on YouTube.
Mhm.
Worst thing I could have did at the time. Worst thing I could have did at the time. Because all I heard, like I didn't look up what it actually was. I only looked up what happens when I only looked up videos of what the sounds was, all the stuff like that. And so if you don't actually know what it does, it kind of scares you. And so when I'm hearing stuff, I'm like, oh my God, they breaking bones, they doing this, they doing. I'm like, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm not trying to go there. So I end up trying to. I honestly try to look, like little by little, I try to talk her out of letting me do that, and I go do something else. But she was like, Marcus, I'm telling you, I get recommended by this, like people recommend this guy a lot, and I'm like, all right. So I end up going. I get down there and get honestly, I'm terrified. And this woman besides me, like she tells me, like it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And I'm just like, I guess, I'm still nervous. So I go in there. Needless to say, like he started off doing everything, talking to me, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Hey, get on your side." And I was like, okay, I didn't see this in the video. So I was like, this is new. This is something new. So maybe he ain't gonna do what he did to other people. So I'm like, okay. So he put his hand on my side. I'm like, okay. So and he starts talking to me. And while I'm talking, obviously he knew it was my first time. So while I was talking, he went ahead and did it. And I was like, oh my God. And so I jumped up and was like, oh my goodness, like you hurt me. I'm scared in my own head. I'm like, oh, something's wrong. And he was like, hold up, wait, look what you doing. Look what you were doing. And I'm like, hold up, I can I'm jumping, I'm jumping really high. Hold up. Let me. And so I'm like, this it's been 3 weeks since I've been able to do this. And so, needless to say, I ended up getting very, very interested. Long story short, we ended up having a long talk after like 3 weeks of visiting him. And he was just like, have you ever thought about going to chiropractic school? Because he heard my major. And I was like, honestly, I didn't know what a chiropractor was, sir, until I like seen you. And like I got really intrigued. And that's how I started off falling in love with what I'm soon to become a chiropractor.
What a great story. I love that. and going into so scared and like, what are you going to do? I'm going to walk out of here all cracked up, you know? And you're walking out of there with a spring in your step and a whole new major.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
It, it
incredible.
it was nice. Beautiful.
Wow. So I want to ask you, because you explained before about your mom and dad, and I had asked you before, are your brothers and sisters like you? And you said, yeah, they are. They all are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of describe how your family influence has affected your path and the support that you have from your family, your core
Mhm.
family.
Well, I say this, and like we are very, very competitive within each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not even on who's the best or who's not. It's like who's gonna learn more at this point in time and who's gonna help the other one pull the other one up, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is it's funny. It's funny how it all works. But what ends up happening is my one of my sisters, she is extremely, extremely smart, extremely brilliant. And she ended up she works on airplanes. And like she's in the Air Force and she does like coding for airplanes and stuff like that. So extremely smart. Something I didn't excel in numbers as much as what she did. So she would come home and start talking to me about this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you sound so interested in what you're doing. I'm gonna sit here and listen. I'm gonna sit here and listen to you. And so what ended up happening was it was just like, okay, if you know this field that well, I'm gonna learn my field just as well as you did, but I'm gonna do it better. That's exactly how I said,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna learn it better. And the thing is, it's my other sister ended up doing the exact same thing. In her field, she does real estate. And in her field, she does extremely well. And it's like, if that's her field and that's what she's going to, I'm gonna know it and I'm gonna know it better than like we try to compare, our jobs and the things that we do is not necessarily comparable, but we try to find a balance to compare it. So like we like, okay, I'm gonna do this better. And what ends up happening is we ended up seeing each other succeed, and we like, you know what? I gotta do a little bit better. But in essence, we sit back and look at each other and we sit and say, like, okay, they doing a great job. Or you know what? They may need a little help to surpass me. We don't mind our brothers and sisters getting past us in that aspect because we always know that when it comes down to it, we're gonna help each other, we're gonna pull each other up. Like it's like climbing a ladder. You climb a ladder and you have somebody like say for instance, y'all both climbing a mountain. I'm sorry y'all both climbing the mountain.
Mhm.
One person gets to like close to the top and the other one starts slipping. You are not gonna let the other one fall.
Mhm.
So what ends up happening is you end up lifting them up, and just so happen they end up being higher than you. And then they start climbing. You slip, they pick you up, pull you up, and you higher than them. And that's how we kind of it's a very healthy competition. If that makes sense. It's like we
Yeah.
we love to succeed, but we all want to be the best. If that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I can completely not relate to you in in that, but I celebrate what you have. I mean, and I have to piggyback on that on your answer. Who are your parents? I mean, how are you all doing this? What parental influence has been, in all of your lives to make you all excel like this?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. My parents, my mom and dad are both police officers. But the thing is, how we grew up. It was six of us in the house, like outside of my mom and dad. So it was eight involved, and eight in all.
Mhm.
And we grew up kind of in a struggling environment, if that makes sense. But I didn't necessarily know we were struggling. My parents did everything around it to make sure I had a successful life.
Mm.
And so I used to, and honestly, I took things for granted at a young age because I was like, I would see my friends like having new stuff all the time. And I'm just like, mom, like, I don't want to wear these or do this. And honestly, when I look back on it, I think back and I kind of feel bad and I kind of get mad at myself, but I was a kid. So I kind of get mad at myself because I'm just like, why was I complaining about that? It wasn't even nothing big. But like my mom and dad, they would do so much stuff for us, and we wouldn't even know they were struggling every day, like to try to keep us afloat. And about the time I turned, I think I was like maybe 11 or 12 before I started realizing what was really like how my parents was trying to make sure I was able to do anything or everything that I wanted, but they was knocking themselves back to make sure I was good. So so what ended up happening was I once I got to a certain age, I was like, okay, I realized what's going on now. And I realized that they are doing so much for us to the point that like they made me realize that it wasn't you shouldn't be selfish with things that you do, regardless of them being like my parents and stuff like that. Like I feel like as a parent, you kind of have to make sure your kid is okay, but people don't necessarily do that now. Like people don't necessarily do that. So it's like, yeah, I feel like they need to, but at the same time, they didn't have to, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So the fact that they did shows me a whole lot about my parents' character and who they are and who they wanted us to be. So we all kind of think the exact same way. And like when one person is down, we bring the other one up because of the simple fact of we don't feel like nothing, we don't feel like we feel like selfishness is something that is a big no-no in our family. Like we thrive off helping people. Like if I'm being honest, my dad is probably the most helping person I've ever seen in my life. Like he struggled really, really bad when he was a kid. He was like no parents, like parents wasn't around. And it was a lot of them. It was like it was five brothers and sisters that he had. And with his track record, it would say, if I'm being honest, you would think he would have been in jail. Like the amount of stuff that he had to go through and his family, just in general, like you would have thought he would have been in jail because he ended up moving to Memphis. It was a lot of stuff that went on with that. And but with all the bad stuff that went with him, he always keep a smile on his face. He seems like he's like the happiest person on the planet. And so like he speaks to everybody, he says, "How you doing?" Always smiling, joking, laughing. When he talked to people like while he's at work, it's just everybody loves him. And like he's a like real known person in my town.
Mhm.
And I sit back and I look at him every day and I'm just like, you for you to have went through all that stuff. I didn't even go through any of the stuff that you did because you made sure I didn't have to. But the fact of the matter was for you to make sure I didn't have to and for you to be the way you are, I have no excuse. Like I have no excuse. So like that's honestly what made all of us the way we are. Like by sitting there watching and talking to our parents and figuring out how this stuff how their lives went just in general, I want to make sure not a single kid has to go through any of that. Like like if I can help it out, that's just how I am. Like I really am.
Yeah, and that's gonna your dad, and I'm sure your mom too, but
Mhm,
he changed his family trajectory. He's changed his family legacy by changing, you know, environment,
mhm,
changing the way he parented, maybe from
mhm,
his own growing up environment. But and I can imagine that's going to keep going on in your family because there's greatness there, and greatness usually doesn't, sometimes it skips a generation, but I can't imagine, that legacy is going to keep on going
mhm,
because of how you've been raised. And you're going to instill that when you're ready to have a family. You're going to instill that same thing because you've been taught well. You've been,
mhm,
just trained in positivity and overcoming and I'm going to do it. Like you said, you
mhm.
picked the hardest thing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So tell me this. What was the most challenging thing or aspect about keeping a full course load and playing sports?
The most challenging thing was not listening to outside noise, if that made sense. because I didn't talk about this at first, but my freshman year, I almost flunked out of school. Like my freshman year, I ended out, and I'm not even afraid to say it anymore. I used to be very, very like shy to say it. I had like a 1 point something. Like I think it was like a 1.4. And it was only because it wasn't because I wasn't smart. It
Mhm.
was because I would listen to my like so at the time it was my friends. I would listen to my friends, go out to parties, go do this, go do that, go and just practice football, go do this, and not realizing or not even thinking. I would act like I was do stuff on movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so not realizing that I couldn't play sports without having my grades, and I couldn't succeed farther in what I wanted to do without my grades. Like, so I was like, I said, okay, Marcus, I had to have like a legitimate sit down moment with myself. And to be honest, it was rough at the time. It was very, very rough. And I started kind of questioning myself, if that made sense, what I believe, what I thought, all this type of stuff. And I had to kind of separate myself for a little bit and kind of figure out who I was as a person. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I necessarily answered your question, if that makes sense, but that it was more so not listening to outside noise and figuring out who I was as a person, because it's so much and it's so straining and it's so much that you end up going through during that time, because not just playing sports is one thing, but trying to balance both and not really having any money, not really like it was a lot of stuff, eating noodles and stuff like that, just to kind of and not like it just was a lot going on at the time. And so I had to really, really look deep into myself and be like, if this is what you want, you have to really go get it. Like you can't sugarcoat everything you want in your mind. You can't make excuses to yourself. Because if you make excuses to yourself, you lying to yourself. If I can make an excuse to myself, I'll go out and lie to somebody else. Like,
Mhm.
if I can't even tell the truth to myself, then who am I to say somebody can't do something? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And so that kind of prompted another uh, sub question for me, is that since you went through it and you were going to school, all this and playing sports, and you said you didn't have any money, there wasn't a lot of extra to go live a wonderful lifestyle. You were just focused on that. What are your quick thoughts on a stipend for student athletes, paying student athletes? What are your thoughts on that? Because when you were talking about that, I'm thinking I got to ask that.
That's a really good question. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I got mixed feelings about it, if I'm really being honest,
Okay.
because in essence, it's like, okay, these kids do need a little bit of money, to kind of like not have to depend on people as much. But on the other hand of it, in life, you gotta speak to people. You gotta get to know people. You got to like actually like how do I describe you? Just speak to people. And we kind of losing that, because you don't want to have to depend on people, but you also know eventually you gonna have to look at somebody next to you and be like, hey, yo, like I know you got my back, I got your back, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And now we're starting to lose that because they starting to feel a sense of independency so early, if that makes sense. Because of the simple fact that first off, they getting paid some crazy stuff. Like some of them boys are getting some crazy numbers.
Mhm.
Um, and it also doesn't let you go through the struggle to figure out if that's what you actually want to do. Like you figure out a lot when you down low. Like you figure out a lot about yourself when you at your lowest, or if you feel like you at your lowest. You start to figure out if you gonna actually succeed, or you're gonna actually crumble. And honestly, most people that end up in that environment, they usually end up succeeding because they don't want to end up like whoever they looked up to or looked at was like they had failed in their life, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have very mixed feelings about that. I really don't know which way I'm siding with as much. I think I'm more so siding with the you could pay them, but not nowhere near as much as what y'all paying them, if that makes sense. Like So yeah.
That makes total sense. And it reminds me, what you were saying reminds me of Damon John's book, The Power of Broke, which I really, really like that book because he's saying sometimes money squashes creativity. When you have all the money that you need to do what you want to do, it squashes, you're not going to come up with innovative, creative ideas because you don't have to. Money pays for all that. So not having it really makes you creative. It helps you think of things that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily have thought of as solutions because out of necessity.
And
Yeah.
that's a figure out a lot when you need something. When you absolutely need
I
it, you get real creative. And then after a while, your creativity it blossoms into something more. Like, and you start to figure out a lot of other stuff that you like. It's being, being broke has its perks, which is like being absolutely down has perks, as weird as it sounds.
It really does. It really does fuel a lot of things if you let it. It can crush the person who doesn't want to put in the work, who doesn't want to foster that creativity. It can crush, but like you said, most of the time you're going to succeed because of that. And almost, and I'm not sure if it's real, but you almost feel sorry for the people for the other students really, who have all the money in the world, who came from wealthy families. They don't get to know the struggle, like you said. And I think there's a loss there.
And like, you tell them the truth, because it's very hard to it's hard to meet them where you're at, if that makes sense. You have to meet them where they're at, because it's like when you speak to them, you in essence, when you can't really relate to certain situations, but you can meet somewhere in the middle. And it's a very tough balance, because it's like, okay, if I talk about this, I know they ain't never been through this. So like I don't know, I don't know what I need to talk about with this or something. It's weird because if something bad happens, like to the people that feel like kind of entitled, if something bad happens, they don't know how to respond at all, because of the simple fact of they've never had to go through it. Like, and they're up into a certain age now that their creativity is kind of starting to lose itself, because they've been given stuff so long. And the longer you've been given stuff, the worse your creativity is gonna get. So they never go through the struggle, so their creativity is kind of dwindled a little bit. So they don't know, they all over the place. They don't know what they want to do. They don't know, and then they start to question themselves. And that's it's tough. It's tough.
Well, it builds resourcefulness for sure. I know that from personal experience. Not having a boatload of resources behind you, it just creates a resourcefulness. So I want to ask you, how do you keep personal momentum going in your life? Because you seem, like you're up all the time, but I know nobody is up all the time. So how do you keep that personal momentum going?
I'm gonna be honest. With me, I'm very, very big in like having faith in certain situations, and also not not even just that. If something bad was to happen for me, or something like that I consider bad, I get mad for a split second, but then I think about it and be like, okay, say for instance, if I blew a tire or something on the side of the road, I think a little farther beyond it now than what I did when I was a kid, because now I'm just like, okay, what if I wouldn't have blew that tire on the side of the road and I kept driving 5 more miles and I got into a car accident? What if God was stopping me from having this car accident and actually either paralyzing myself or injuring myself even worse? What if say for instance, I would have sped up, went faster, and the tire would have blew and I wouldn't have been able to stop? Like, what if it's so many what ifs that pops in my head, that I'm just like, this probably was the best situation that could have happened. Like, for me and honest, it probably was the best situation that could have happened. So why complain about it? Because truly, honestly, regardless of you complaining or not, it still happened. Like
Yeah.
it still happens. So why not, why not put a smile on your face and be like, okay, next time I'm gonna do better with this. Next time I'm gonna do better with this. Next time I need to prepare myself better with this. Like I honestly get aggravated with myself when I don't prepare for the worst. Like sometimes I I miscalculate certain things because I'm just like, I should know how to do this. Like I feel like I should know how to do this, but I have to it it makes me have to depend on people sometimes, and I'm okay with it. It's just certain situations I'd be like, I should know how to do this. But just because I don't, I'm kind of happy I met you because you could teach me how to do it. And then we
Yeah.
build in a better relationship more and more. Like
Yeah.
he teach me to do it. Next thing you know, I know his son. And then we get cool with his son. His son ends up needing the chiropractor. And now I'm the chiropractor that he comes through. And then it's a swing. Like it's just so much. Relationships is such a big thing to me. And so yeah, I'm sorry. I went all over the place, but
No, that's quite all right because I think that, like you said, just I call them divine interruptions, and sometimes we're so annoyed by divine interruptions. Oh, that call, I can't talk to them right now, but maybe you're going to say something in that moment that they really need to hear. Or,
mm-hmm,
like you said, a blown out tire or whatever, whatever it is, the divine interruptions
mm-hmm,
are meant to often protect us
mm-hmm.
from other things, and so I've tried to learn to embrace that uh along the way. But I want to ask you to speak now to the young athletes out there who think and who say, I can't do all my schoolwork and play athletes. I'm going to just, the athletic directors, they'll do it for me. I can get people to do it for me as long as I perform on the field. That What do you say to the athlete that says, I can't do both and do both well?
If I'm being honest and being straightforward, if I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna be 100% straightforward.
Yeah.
At this point in time, if you say that, you giving yourself a way out. You kind of being lazy. If I'm being honest, you being lazy because at the end of the day, by you saying you can't do something, is giving you a scapegoat out because it translates over. Everything translates over. If you do that in football, if you do that in academics, you're gonna end up doing it in life. It starts to pop over. Like say for instance, if I love examples, but say for instance,
Please.
um if you use that and they're like, yo, I just want to be able to perform and that's it, and somebody else is going to take this load off of my hands. What's going to happen when you have, say for instance, when you have kids, when you have a family, and you have a family and your kid, and like you watching your kids and stuff like that, and you like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make sure the kid has, I'm gonna make sure I go to work. I'm gonna make sure I make enough money for the kid. I do this and that, but you ain't showing. If this makes sense, it's kind of split in half. You ain't actually going to be around the kid. You
Yeah.
ain't actually going
Yeah.
to spend time with the kid. You ain't going to. But somebody else is gonna do that though. Like my wife is gonna take up that. Like she's gonna be the one doing that.
Yeah.
But in essence, it ends up building a negative relationship with the kid because the kid starts to see you do it. And if boy or girl, they may end up thinking that's the right thing to do because kids watch their parents all the way up, and then it turns into a generational thing. And then it turns into like it can start to really start with you. Like honestly, as I don't like to really put a lot of pressure like that, but as it really sounds, you can predict or you can kind of make the future what it is, if that makes sense. Like you can be the starter, you can be the catalyst of whatever you want to start. You could light the fire that's there, like if I'm being honest. And once the fire is burning, it's gonna spray it. So you gotta make sure you light a good fire. You can't just light something and hope for the best. Like I hope it don't go over there. I hope it don't. But it's looking like it might, but I don't know if it will. If that makes sense.
That makes total sense because that's so relevant and prevalent for today. Like, I can't do it all. I can't. And that entitled feeling and all that. So thank you for speaking to that, because I think that really is spoke to a lot of young athletes that
Mm-hmm.
will, watch this. And
Mm-hmm.
my last question to you, well, I'm going to ask you how people can connect with you. But first, I want to ask you, what exciting things do you have coming up in this year, 2023?
Well, I first I got like I said earlier, I got a private workout for a couple NFL teams and a couple USFL teams. Hopefully, that goes pretty well. I'm gonna go out there and give it all I got. If it goes well, it does. And if it don't, I'm gonna get up and try again. I'm gonna just keep pushing. And I also have my first part, like my part one boards, because it's 4 parts. My part one boards, April 15th. And I actually just now got a which is nice. I got a videographer now. So whatever league I end up signing with, I got actual footage that I can be able to put out. I'm excited about that, as well as like just honestly so much stuff pops up and the unexpected. That all those was already unexpected. So I didn't necessarily plan them. They just came because of like what all I was doing. And that's all I have right now, if I'm being honest. But honestly, something's bound to pop up like next week. Like I get like honestly, it's exciting time right now for me. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's just so much stuff that pops up, and I just be I'm blessed. I'm happy. I'm happy, and I just keep training, keep doing what I do, and good things tend to happen when I keep my head down and keep pushing and keep connecting and keep talking to people. Because honestly, relationships, in my opinion, make the world go round more than anything else. So speaking to people, getting to know people, because you never know where they at, and you never know where they're like whether they're down or they're up, or they needed that extra word, they needed that extra talk to push them over, and then now they're doing something successful, and then they hit you up and be like, hey, I see you doing this, so like you helped me out when I was low. I want you to come do this with me, or the other way around. I'll look at somebody that's like that think they're low, pick them up. Like I enjoy that type of stuff. So yeah, that's just me.
Yes.
But that's all I have right now, but I'm excited.
Well, that's enough for the whole 2023 and all these other things that are going to come into your life, because you're in forward motion. You are creating momentum. So opportunities come to those who have momentum going. You're not sitting saying, NFL call me, NFL call me.
Yep.
You're taking those actions to create your future, really.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to open your own chiropractic office someday?
Oh, I will. I'm gonna be honest, I will.
I
And
know you will.
yes, I want to work underneath somebody to kind of learn the business aspect of it, because I know for a fact I don't even know even probably half of it, and so I want to really really sit down and figure out the business side outside of just adjusting and diagnosing and referring people out when they don't need to be in my office or things of that nature. Like I'm pretty good with that, but the business side of it is something that I really really need to hone in on, and I know I need to. And so I'm excited to do it. So honestly, I'm actually very excited. I'm actually maybe a little more excited to do that than go to this workout, if I'm being honest. But I, I enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said about, yeah, if the NFL workout turns out well, great. If it doesn't, you're still moving forward. It's
Hmm.
not going to be like so many of these young men are just like, oh, I didn't make it. And they don't have a plan B,
Hmm.
and they're just lost.
Hmm.
So you always, and I can pretty much guess that you live by always have a plan B. Oh,
Yes. Yes.
so how can people connect with you on social media or anywhere else?
Well, I have an Instagram account. I actually have a TikTok account as well. I have Facebook. And I have a LinkedIn, of course. or you can just reach me by email too. Like I'm a very open person. I can give you my Facebook will be Lamarcus Caradine. Um, Instagram is I am with the little underscore Marcus. Um, and my LinkedIn account is my name, of course. And then TikTok is the same thing as my Instagram is I am underscore Marcus. I try to keep it all pretty the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thank you. And I will include all of those in the show notes. So, everybody will have that available to them as well. And all I have to say, Marcus, you are one remarkable young man. And I see nothing but great and awesome things for you and your future. And I'm so glad that you took time today to chat with me.
Yes, man. I appreciate the opportunity and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, me too. And I just want to let everybody know, I'll close by saying, hey, if you need a book, you know where to come.
Yes.
I can take your book idea and from concept to completion. And if you want to get in touch with me, I am on Winning Proof at pretty much across the social media, LinkedIn, IG, Facebook. I think that's out. I am not on TikTok and I'm very resistant. But I'll just say that.
I completely understand.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching this. And until next time, thank you for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.
Thank you.
Thank you.